What's going on, trash cans? Welcome back to another episode where we are going to look at building a collection. This one's going to be a little bit of a twist. This one is actually going to be looking at sealed product that you can pick up in the wild, and we're going to be talking about how the market is kind of like being shaped by scalpers and what would you be looking for in a instance or affordability wise for something you can purchase. So that is the intent of today's event, today's stream, right? It isn't going to be anything too crazy. It's just going to be us looking at different options that you can purchase from Walmart, from Target, from GameStop, stuff that you can overall pick up on the street that you have a good chance to pull stuff and or that you have a good chance to hold value whether you keep it sealed or not. So that is what today's stream is going to be about. It's literally just going to be analyzing and overviewing the Pokemon market and seeing what is out there. Now, again, we are going to use TCG Player as our pivot point for all of our information, just to kind of establish market trends, establish values, and highlight things that are available on the shelf today. Now, mind you that there are sealed products from the past that people will have the opportunity to purchase at shows and stuff like that. What is up, Shaker? By the way, I am doing this because you asked. So this is actually because of something that we had talked about where you were interested in saying, if I see this on the shelf, it would be something to get. So this is what today's stream is about. We're going to be talking about sealed products, specifically Pokemon, because you and other people were curious. So shout out to Shaker for the request, and let's dive into it. Now, in Pokemon, you have what people would call your main sets and your special sets. So main set example is going to be your Mega Evolution or your Scarlet Violet White Flare or Destined Rivals Journey Together, right? Your special sets are going to be Prismatic Evolutions. Now, when you hear that, you're like, what is the difference? Well, the difference is Prismatic Evolutions doesn't have a booster box, whereas all of these other sets do have booster boxes. The one that was before Scarlet Violet Prismatic Evolutions was your Paldean Fates. They also didn't have a booster box. So all of your special sets will not have booster boxes available for you to purchase. They will have premium collections. They will have booster bundles. They will have other ways that you can get product, but they're not going to have anything mainline in regards to that. Now, Mega Evolutions came out about a month ago, right? So we should start seeing their sealed products start to kind of like even out on the market. So you have your PCETB Lucario and your PCETB Gardevoir, right? And then your Mega Evolutions booster box and your enhanced booster box are all kind of coming down. If you remember about roughly a month ago when these first came out, these were like $300. So we're starting to see, that get all the way down to 230, and we're starting to see a trending to the right where we're seeing that retest of that market low and seeing that trend to the right, which is what you want in a stable market. You want good consistency. So again, if you aren't familiar with Safeway, Safeway is a grocery store, and they have a contract with Pokemon Center where they have Pokemon Center hubs located in their Safeways. And there is a limited number of them across the Eastern Seaboard, across the United States. But I think that there's on the Eastern Seaboard like 3,000 sites or something like that. But you can have the option to purchase these booster boxes at MSRP versus what market is. Now, MSRP for the Mega Enhanced Solution Box was $161.99 from Pokemon Center. So that would be what you're paying if you found that out at your local PC drop. Now, if you go to a store and you see it in a store, you are going to see these go for this 250 to 300 mark price range, just because that is what people are going to be charging. Now, on the flip side, your booster packs, I have seen them as low as $4.99 at a local game store, but I do know that Walmart and GameStop are charging, I think, like $6.99, which is still technically under market. But again, depending on where you're at, Maryland, New York, stuff like that with higher taxes, 6-10% taxes, you're still going to look at being equal to what market is. So is GameStop really going to be cheaper? Now, when it comes to grabbing product to purchase, if I was going to purchase something, I would look at either what sets that product apart versus everything else. So I have two examples with specifically Mega Evolutions that we're going to talk about, which is this Mega Evolution blistered pack right here, which has a Psyduck or a Golduck. Something that you want to look for is uniqueness, right? So you want to look for unique promos that come with the product that set the product apart, where even if you pull not good, that you will still get value from the promo. So I'll give you that example, right? So this Psyduck is, I believe, one of the Black Star promos. I can't spell, but that is okay. But that promo, the Psyduck promo from Mega Evolutions, is currently $12. So what that means is that whether or not you open anything in the pack, you're still going to have a card worth $12. Now, the other thing I want you to remember is that your booster box, your enhanced booster box, does come with a stamped promo. So yes, you can pull the regular Bulbasaur in the potential in the box, but again, the Bulbasaur stamped is a guaranteed item at $32. Whether or not you open anything good up in the box or not, you're guaranteed to get this unique stamped promo that only comes in this enhanced booster box. Now, Psyduck is also a very playable card as well. That I did not know. So the thing to remember, though, when you're looking at product to purchase is, does my product that I'm purchasing have something that set itself apart? Now, when you go back and you look at all of these sets, you have Black Bolt, you have White Flare. If we go to White Flare, for example, White Flare does have the Victini. Here, I'll just pull it up for you guys. Victini illustration collection, right? So this is a split Black Bolt White Flare, comes with a Victini promo, but again, because it comes with this unique promo that a lot of people are collecting, that this is a very grabbable item. Now, what you should see is not what this price is, but again, stores are starting to mark up and match market, even though MSRP for this product is like $24.99, and that's what people should be paying. You're going to see stores charging, $40 to $45 just because they don't want scalpers to scalp the product to sell for a profit, right? So they're trying to eliminate scalpers that way. Certain stores do that if they're local LGSs. Other stores like Target, GameStop, and stuff like that don't do that. GameStop's got a little bit more wiggle room, though, and they tend to do things a little bit not uncoordinated. Not coordinated like the status quo, essentially. But yeah, so again, illustration sets like that, something that sets the product apart is going to be important. Now, what you also have to remember is if the product holds value, that means something in the product is worth collecting. So what do I mean by that? Destined Rivals, for example, has the most expensive Mewtwo card next to Mewtwo from all the way back in, I believe, Shining Fates. And so that means that the sealed product for this set is going absolute bananas, right? So an ETB's got at a market price of $116. You have a booster box at $392. Your PC ETB's at $350. So these items are more expensive because your chases in the set are what people are chasing, right? There's not really special figurine promos or anything in the Mega Evolution, or I'm sorry, not the Mega Evolution, but the Destined Rivals set that really set this product apart. Now, what you also have to remember in these sets is, do cards have playability or are they collectors? So when you think about playability, I believe it's Twilight Masquerade. It's not Twilight Masquerade. So Twilight Masquerade has Greninja, right? But it is the Shrouded Fable. So Shrouded Fable has a high mark because of one card in particular, and that's the Fazandipede. Because this card is played aggressively, you have the special illustration rare that's like at $46, but you have an ultra rare at $22, and then you have a standard EX at almost $17. Because this card is played aggressively in the format, people will want the sealed product. But what you also have to remember is in Shrouded Fable, for example, there's two examples of cards or collections that you that were printed and created that really set themselves apart. And this started kind of like a trend in future sets in Pokemon, which was you had the Kingdra EX special illustration and the Greninja EX special illustration. So if you were into Pokemon a year ago, you would know that Shrouded Fable was on every shelf. Nobody wanted it. These collections were a dime a dozen. And then people realized that Greninja doesn't have a lot of special illustration rares. So this Greninja EX and this Kingdra EX set themselves apart because they had a illustration, specifically a special illustration rare that you could get nowhere else in the market. Much like an ETB has an ETB promo, this has a market specifically for the Greninja EX and the Kingdra EX. Now, when it comes to special sets, again, remember that your Prismatic Evolutions and your set like Paldean Fates, they do not have booster boxes, which means that your sealed product is going to be more expensive because this is the only place that you can get packs for the set versus you being able to buy a booster box, which means you're limited to the number of packs you can open on a regular basis. So what you're seeing is that these Prismatic Ultra Premium collections, where there is a market price of $315, these are sold at MSRP from Target, from GameStop, from Costco for $99. And then scalpers are going in, buying them for $99, and then flipping it to the market. Now, I do know for a fact my local LGS, which I'm not going to say their name, but again, this isn't a bad thing. In order to counteract scalpers, they actually raised the price of their Prismatic Surprise boxes to $39.99. Now, this LGS does offer a rewards program where you can get 20% off if you reward your points, and that should lower the market. Even after tax, you would walk away maybe saving $2. Now, I'm not saying $2 isn't a lot of money, but we all understand that with the cost of inflation, that $2 really isn't going to be a make or break. The only difference is that I'm not paying shipping, but I did pay for the gas to get there. So, again, keep in mind that when you're looking for your sealed product to get, that you want something to set itself apart. Now, the unique thing about Prismatic Evolutions is that you have a premium figure right here, and so this actually has a unique, two unique promos in it. Now, I don't think that this figure has been released yet, but it has the Umbreon and Espeon promo, which means that this is the only place that you can get these promos, which means that this is going to drive the price aggressively. These are very collectible cards, especially if you can get them graded. It can be hyperly aggressive collected. I do not know if they've released the promo yet, so we're actually going to check right now. I don't think they have. Yeah, so out of stock, market not available. So this is the Umbreon. There's no recent sales or anything like that, but this is the Umbreon that comes in the Prismatic Scarlet and Violet. What's going to happen with the market is people are going to open this product, they're going to have these promos, and they're going to flood the market. And then once the market becomes flooded, the price is going to kind of drop aggressively, and then it's going to kind of restabilize. You want it when you want to grab it when it's at the bottom. But again, if you can find these in the wild, it would be absolutely awesome. Again, those promos are unique to Prismatic Evolutions and unique to that collection itself. So that would be something if you see it in the wild. If you want to open it, by all means, you have every right to open it. But this would be a solid and long-term investment, especially because the two promos that come in it. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my analyzing of the market and how things are coming. Now, don't get me wrong. The Evolution Super Premium Collection does have a unique promo in it. If you're not familiar with the EV that comes in it, I'll show you guys EV. So this is the Scarlet Violet promo that comes. This comes in the EV collection, the Premium Collection. Again, you do get this promo. It is a $40 promo off Jump Street. But again, EV collectors, dime a dozen, and it's like one of those cute, adorable cards that people like to collect. So that's what kind of drives that market value there. Now, with the rest of the stuff that comes out, that came out in Prismatic Evolutions, some things are pretty standard. Some things are pretty standard. I mean, you have a pouch collection, you have a binder collection. Buy one from me at 85% of market. Oh, the Prismatic Premium. On a complete side note, what's up, Nico? On a complete side note, this is one of the most attempted to sell things at shows that nobody ever wants. I've never seen somebody sell these, and I mean, I guess it's because of the price or whatever, but yeah, They just don't sell, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. But again, when it comes, back on my little tangent, but you have certain sparks with your booster boxes and your packs. Sealed does sell better. It does, versus being in store or in person. The bad thing, I wouldn't say shitty thing. The bad thing about Prismatic though is that, again, without the access to booster boxes, you don't have access to like quantity of packs. So you have to kind of like make up the gap with it. So that's why, and the pull ratios are absolutely terrible. So that's another thing that when you guys are opening up product, you have to think about like, what is my chance of opening up something? So keep in mind that if you were in a store and you were like, I just want to get something that I can open that you can grab off the shelf and have a chance of getting something cool, out of all of the new sets that came out, the best chance to do that, again, this isn't about value, this is just literally about opening up something cool. Black Bolt or White Flare, in combination between these two sets, you have like 161 illustration rares between these two sets, which is an astronomical number of illustration rares. But again, you also have the opportunity to pull a God pack in it, which is an entire pack full of illustration rares with a special illustration rare in the middle. So if you're looking for just something cool to open and a chance to hit something, this would be the two sets to do. So it is a lot of fun at MSRP. Buying stuff from shows and sealed from shows, accessibility to product is always, hard. And, it's just really hard because you want to not sell things, but, people go up and scalp it and then you want to open things. And even as a channel, if you go back to our channel a year ago, we were able to go to Target, to Walmart. We were able to buy Pokemon in bulk, and we just can't do that anymore. It's not that we can't go to shows. It's not that we can't order off TCG Player, but even then, knowing what shops are paying for at MSRP, they're literally going to stores, buying out Costco, buying out, BJ's and all these other stores to flip on their store to try to make a profit. And it's like, that's great and all, but that's why they have distributors. They shouldn't be taking away from other options and sources. So yeah, it is a little bit unfortunate. Now, if you're feeling frisky and you ever get the opportunity to go to a local game store, there is a cheaper option to open things if language doesn't matter. And that is that you can always open Japanese. Now, the difference between specifically for Prismatic versus everything else is that the Japanese version of Prismatic Evolutions is called Terrestrial Festival, and it actually has booster boxes versus your English comparison. So you can actually get a booster box. It does come with packs, and for this, you are guaranteed one special illustration rare per box, but that is only unique to special sets. Now, again, you can pull the same thing in this that you can from your English set, except it's Japanese. So because of that, the price of these cards are much more affordable. But as you're starting to see that these market prices are starting to kind of start going up, because like most things in the hobby, I do believe that the Japanese was not appreciated when it first came out, so the price went down aggressively, and now we're starting to see market appreciation. Even though Roaring Moon at one point was like $60-something, it did get bought out, but we're starting to see that market stabilization where it's going all the way over here, right? But if you go back, you had a sale at 80. You had sales all over the place, and then you had sales that jumped all over the place. So again, understanding that if the language doesn't matter, Japanese is always an option. Japanese does have different pull ratios, but again, you do have options in this. Now, Japanese always comes out ahead of time. So what I mean by that is the M2 Inferno X is Japanese. The English version is called Phantasmal Flames. That hasn't been released yet, but they still, again, have the same cards. But what we're starting to see is these gold cards are being pumped up astronomically, and it poses a lot of concern in the hobby because if the carpet gets pulled out from underneath these cards and people start dumping off their product, it's going to dump the cost of cards, and the people are going to be stuck in a loophole where they're trying to get rid of stuff, and they're not going to have the ability to do so at a fair market price. So it's going to kind of stagnate the hobby. So with that being said, traditionally, whenever an English set releases, we see these values drop aggressively. But again, for a set that hasn't released in English, I'm not saying that this isn't a glorious card. This absolutely is one of the most sick Charizard cards that have ever been created, because you have two variations of Charizard in the artwork, which definitely holds the value in regards to like marketability of a product. But when it comes to the gold Charizard, again, it's uniqueness, but in the scheme of design, this is not the nicest design of a Charizard. And it's kind of rudimentary, and it's kind of, well, dookie. And, yeah, you have the blue wave and the red wave, and it's kind of intricate, but in comparison, I definitely think the Mega Charizard, the SAR, the SIR is much better than Mega Charizard EX. A lot of cards are crashing, and so when people say crashing, right? We're not crashing, we're stabilizing. And there is a difference. Let me explain. So when you're looking at let's look at Destin Rivals, right? So when you're looking at Mewtwo, if you look at this market analysis, right? Oh, we're up 10%. And people say, oh, the market's crashing because there's sales at 500 and then there's sales at 600. The market's not crashing. All we're doing is we're starting to stabilize in a market where the market's agreeing of card value, especially with cards that people are still actively opening and will be opening for the next 2 years. How many copies? I can't pronounce the English half the time, so language really is an issue. No, of course not. But again, for those collectors that it isn't an issue, you can get a vast majority of Japanese product for a much better price than what you're going to spend on English product. And because you can't get the Japanese product in America anyways, getting them from overseas or getting them off eBay is a much more reasonable thing to do. You just have to make sure they're from a reliable source versus, just trusting anybody that does. The Burger Pikachu PSA rate? No, what is that? Also, there is some market manipulation from PSA. Really? Let's check it out. Well, so they're doing it for clickbait, right? If they can scare people into selling out their collection because the market's going to crash. At the end of the day, if you're in the hobby for money, then yeah, you should be worried that it's going to crash. PSA population. Oh my god. All right, so total population 64,891. Damn. Right, right. And that's the thing, right? Is that if I know that we've as our community continues to grow, we're not in it for the money, right? Is it going to suck if the market crashes and we've invested a bunch of money in these cards, and the values of the cards like get pulled? Yes, it would be unfortunate. Um, but sorry, I'm trying to pull a population one more time. 128 836. But yeah, if the carpet gets pulled out and yeah, so there's 62,300 PSA 10s. But again, this kind of like dives into an entirely different conversation, right? So what I mean by that is, if you go back 5 or 10 years, when it came to graded cards, people cared about population. What I mean by that is, because we as kids did not keep great condition of our cards, what happened was good condition cards in that era are hard to come by, which drives the price up for cards that are graded in a PSA 10 versus your cards that are graded in a PSA 8 or 7 or 6, right? So population mattered in regards to scarcity. Now, with the newer generation, all we're seeing is people grade and 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 grade. And that's okay because people aren't worried about the population. What they're worried about is accessibility to the product. They just want the card. They don't care about population. So it's not the same as that generation of people that had those. If you know the Mickey Mantle of Pokemon cards, yeah. So we'll show you guys another one, right? So this is the Umbreon EX from Terrestrial Festival, right? So much like the Burger Chew, there is a metric poop ton graded. There's 51,652 graded. But like we're seeing, people just want the card. They don't care about the population of the card. So this number doesn't matter. More people want the card, so they're willing to pay the price of the card versus not. Now, what you have to remember is that PSA does sell on eBay. And what we're starting to see is that in order to help throw off market values, PSA is listing cards severely under market, selling them really quick, and then keeping that as a registered sale. I do not agree with this. But you can also sell your card to PSA for 90% of market value. And if you watch our stream on Friday, we actually see a gentleman trying to sell his Greninja, and was like, well, PSA will pay me $900. Then take the $900 because nobody's going to beat that, right? But as you see, like you have these sales, right, at, you know, showing the market trend where 400, 490, we're like back up at $500. And so we're starting to see this card continue to climb in price, even though your market value number is still a high population, because again, the newer generation just wants to have one. They don't care about population scarcity. So they would rather have 51,000 copies of a $500 card. That's what I was looking at, is that it really doesn't have to deal with. Right. So number doesn't really matter at that point anymore. With accessibility, what you're going to have is you're not going to have as much scarcity, which means that there can be more sales, a more consistent market stabilization, a more consistent market number, versus your cards that may have 3 or 4 sales a month. You're going to have hundreds of sales a month. So you can keep steady sales in numbers on that aspect, right? But when it comes to, you know, I'm trying to find the diamond in the rough, well, unfortunately with Pokemon is that you have so many sets with so many possibilities that unless you go back like vintage stuff, you're not going to find a, you know, hypothetical, you know, $2,000 or $3,000 card. The only one that really has one is the prismatic set, and with prismatic pull rates, it's, you know, you're literally like rolling the dice. May the odds be ever in your favor. And this is what people are hunting, right? They're hunting that $1,000 Umbreon EX. And that is why people open up prismatic, is because they're chasing the opportunity to pull one of these, or pull one of these lesser, you know, SIRs, send it to PSA, it comes back at 10, hopefully, and then they sell the PSA 10 for $600 or $700 to help compensate for the amount of money that they've dumped into ripping the product. So, you know, especially with the quantity of scalpers, that's, you know, people aren't trying to just master set this entire set. They're just hunting the expensive cards. Now, something to keep in mind is when you have things like the Bubble Mew, we're going to use Paldean Fates because we've opened up a lot of this on our channel in the past. When you look at your cost of product, again, this is a pretty standard outline of sealed products from early Scarlet Violet. You have tins, you have your premium collections, nothing really unique. But again, you have this Charizard tin with the Charizard. That is why this is expensive, because the Charizard. Now, on top of that, packs of Paldean Fates is still astronomically expensive because people want to pull the Bubble Mew. But again, when you look at, the market, quote, pseudo crashing, it's like, okay, let me look up the cost of near mint. Is the market crashing? The market's going down, but it's not doing what people are saying, right? We're not bottoming out. We're starting to see a good, consistent market stabilization around $600, because you had a point where it was pushing almost up to 7 right here, and we're back down to like 630. The more consistency we have on a market trend line, the more we know that people around the market are willing to pay that market price, which means that sustainability of the market trend will intrinsically either sustain value, or as the market becomes flooded with an opportunity to have the card, we're going to see a little bit of a price decrease. This is standard analysis understanding of any market trends that are going on, whether it be in the Pokemon market, the stock market, or anything like that. But again, I'm highlighting this because as a special set, much like the Umbreon, this card everybody wants. But the most dangerous thing you can see in the market is this right here. On 7/26, this card was $355. And that was, July 26th. On September 9th, you had this card at $700. So this had a $400 markup between July 28th and September 9th. That is not a lot of time for this card to continuously trend up and to the right. There was no ability for this market to stabilize. So now we're starting to see that stabilization. What we're hoping for is how this massive uptick right here, right? We're starting to see that trend. And what we're going to hope for is that it might come down and retest down below that $600 market threshold for a little while. And then it's going to shoot back up and then stabilize. And we want to kind of see it get that nice, right form movement in order for it to fit in that narrative of being a $600 card. That's why if you're at a show, especially this last weekend, you had I think I turned down 7 or 8 Bubble Mews this past weekend, PSA 9s and raw copies, because everybody's seeing the market and they're scared. And instead of understanding how the market works, they're just trying to get rid of the card at a high price point because it is a, quote, sought after card. But unless people are trying to master set Paldean Fates or get it in a PSA 10, there's no reason for me to take this in as a vendor, especially at its price point, because it's so volatile. So for me, my hesitation is, because we haven't seen that market stabilization, I'm not going to buy it when it's all the way up here at $700 and then, try to get rid of it at $500. For me, that does not make a smart business venture. Again, it's not that it's a bad card, but knowing what people are coming up to my booth looking for and that they're trying to grade the card, why would I take a PSA 9 and if people want 10s? That doesn't make sense. They're trying to create a positive net value from the transaction. That's why people want the raw copy in hopes that it comes back at 10. Now, some other things to consider is that Paldean Fates does have the Charizard EX and the Gardevoir. Again, the Gardevoir did the same thing. We had this massive uptick between August and September. So in 1 month, we went from a $70 card to $140 cards. But what we're seeing different is that we are trending to the right at that market threshold. So would you just want to grade as many of mint to near mint cards that you possibly could? Would you be like playing red and black, but not considering it might fall on green? Right, so is grading important? Grading is important if, one, you like graded cards and you understand that if the grader decides it's going to be a 6, then it's going to be a 6, whether it's out of the pack or not. And then you have an option. Do I crack the slab and try to regrade it, or do I just crack it and sell it as raw? Now, the thing with that is, if it comes back at 10, which is a massive if, you do have a solid net return on most of your cards. For example, this card raw is $140. In a PSA 10, it sells for like $420. That is a solid 3 times return, much like all of your other PSA 10s. But what you're looking at is a set that's still actively being printed and a card value that's still actively being printed. So we're not going to see its true value until these cards have been in rotation and then stop being printed, and then people start actually collecting the cards. That's when you're going to see graded cards come out in value. Right now, you have people that are master setting all of these sets all throughout their Pokemon journey or creating a Pokédex, which means that when I'm taking in cards as a vendor, for example, I know that I could have somebody that is master setting Stellar Crown, and that as long as I have one or two of the top chases in the set, at some point within a month's period, somebody is going to be looking for these cards. Versus if I'm taking in some of the bigger stuff, much like this, much like in Prismatic, for example, nobody's master setting Prismatic because it's so expensive. And people that are trying to master set it are hoping that they're still going to see this value come down. But again, why am I seeing this steady downtrend? Much like a steady uptrend, we have not seen any movement to the right, which means that right now, what should happen in the grand scheme of market analysis is that at your 3-month mark, right, we have both, by the way, but what we're starting to see right now is that it hit its low and we're coming up. So what it should happen, it should come back down to this threshold point. It should, retest that low and break either to the up or to the right. If it breaks up and to the right, that means that we've established where the market bottom is. And it could come back down and retest it a third time. But if it retests it a third time and fails and keeps going down, then that $1,000 card is now dropping in price. Why is the PSA 10 so crazy for this? Because everybody wanted the Moonbreon, but because they missed out on Evolving Skies, they're not trying to miss out on this. I promise you that they're going to have this one, and that Umbreon EX promo is going to go bananas. It's going to go insane. And that's what people missed out on the Umbreon VMAX. So this is their makeup, right? And that's why you have people selling a BGS, whatever, at 9.5 at $399, a Korean one at $500, and then a light play at $10.99 or a near min at $11.85, right? What you have to think about is, what can I buy for $1,000? You can buy 2 PSA 10s in Japanese for the price of one raw moon or Umbreon. So let's say, for example, right? Hear me out. Let's say, for example, that I buy 4 of these, because again, if I'm looking up, and just for argument's sake, just to prove the point, we're going to go to eBay real quick, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so Prismatic Evolutions Umbreon EX. That's March 21st. Okay, so you had a best offer accepted, which I don't think this is a valid sale. Okay, so the reason I don't think this is a valid sale, and this is what I mean by PSA is like tanking the market. This was listed best offer accepted on October 21st for $2,700. But the one sold yesterday for auction at Probstein for $4,000. So again, just be careful with where you're pulling your market values from, because I definitely don't think that this card is worth that. But again, you have a card that is in English recent sales between $4,000 and $4,500. Okay, for that price, I can get, like, let's say we agree on the market value of $4,200, right? And my market value for the Japanese one is $500. So I can get essentially eight like Japanese Sunbreons, as they're called, in a PSA 10 for the price of one English. If that English copy goes up $100, then I'm up, less than 10%. But if my 8 copies of Japanese go up by $100, I am up $800. And I have multiple copies. So as the values continue to stabilize, would you rather have 8 copies of something that if they go up, by 200% over the next 5 years, because you're in the long term, you're up 200% across 8 cards. You're not up 200% across 1 card. So if your goal is collecting and you're not trying to do vending and you're not trying to build a collection that way, then what you want to look at is these opportunities to buy a quantity number of PSA 10s that are, between $50 and $100. And then as they go up in value over the next 5 to 10 years, and that market value goes up by 200%, if I bought a card at $50 and it's now selling for $150, I'm up 200% on the market value of that card. But then again, I bought 10 copies. So I'm actually up 200% times 10 across those copies alone. So then your profit margin is much better, because then you can take that and you can sell it. And not only are they going to take a percentage, for a collection that size, they're probably only going to take like 90% because you have so many PSA, graded cards. But the overall return is still greatly in your favor. So again, this is just something to understand, that you have the option to buy these English cards at such a high price point. But on the flip side, you have some cards that just are more expensive in the Japanese than they are in English. And so I'll show you guys what I mean. So you have the Umbreon VMAX. This is the EV Hyper Rare. There's $8,000 for the Japanese version for these two. But again, it's two different sets. Remember that is the Japanese set had a completely different pull ratio than the English set. So is the right choice for the English the same as the Japanese? Again, what can you get in order to better your collection for that quantity of money? Now, as a vendor, having bigger cards is always good because people are looking to put big things in their collection. But when you look at your overall incentivization to buy a bigger card, right? Like, let's say, for example, you wanted to say, oh, I want a Charizard Gold Star, and I want a PSA 9. Okay, recent sales, October 19th, for a PSA 9 Charizard Gold Star is $12,700. This was on an auction. This was an auction that ran that high. So would I rather get, I don't know, however many copies of whatever card, hold that for 5 years, and see that market return over the potential for one card of sustainability? Because again, this sold at 12.7, best offer received. This sold at 12.5. PSA 10 Gold Star Rayquaza. PSA 19. Okay. The Japanese version is 16,000. I have no idea. I don't think one sold recently. Yeah, like I said, it's. I mean, look at listings. All right, so you have bids, a PSA 1 at 4.6. PSA 1, like, that is just obscene. That's disgusting. A 3 at buy now at 7K. Again, this is, what do I want to invest my money in? You have a Japanese Gold Star PSA 10 at 50,000 or best offer. So again, when you're looking at market accessibility, should you be scared on market numbers, right? The thing about all of these cards is that these low population cards don't have a lot of consistent sales, so the market's driven a lot better. And the newer group of people, they want accessibility to cards, so they're going to grade the wazoo out of the cards. No. I would not be relatively working for the rest of my life if I could afford one of these. But yeah, it's just understanding where's the opportune time to invest your money, right? Especially as young collectors or getting into the hobby, between sealed product and slabs, like, what is the opportune thing? I mean, you can go on GameStop and try to hawk off deals, but GameStop's listings are populated in all of the Discords with all of the bots. People are botting GameStop in order to hawk off deals off GameStop. GameStop also has the contract with PSA. So you have all of these companies invested in the graded card community because there's so much potential money in it that it's like, what's the right option when it comes to buying or selling the cards? So that's just, is there a right or wrong answer? Understanding that numbers don't lie and understanding how things work, right, is If a card has a steady support system at a specific price, then it's good. If a card doesn't have a steady support system at a certain price, then it comes into question of what is that card really worth? Because at any point, especially with low populations, that card can drop in value aggressively. Now, if you're a collector, the drop in value doesn't matter. I mean, it's going to matter with what you paid for it, but it's not going to matter in the overall outcome of whether or not you keep that card because you got it for your reason. You got it to collect. You're not worried about that value of that card going anywhere. So just keep that in mind where it's okay if a card value drops. A lot of my card values dropped, and that's okay. It's market stabilizing itself because we were on an uptrend across the board for like 3 months straight. You had cards going everywhere that shouldn't have been, going in that price, right? Like if you guys remember, this Gengar from the Lost Origin Trainer Gallery was like $60. Now we're at $33.89. It's like, oh no, the market's plummeting to the ground. No, we went from $15 July 29th to $38 on October 4th. And now we're starting to see it stabilize. That is okay. We want it to stabilize in order to establish its value. All of these things are okay when it comes to the market and what you're looking for. But if you're trying to get into collecting or get into grading or get into whatever you like to get into, be it raw or graded, the most affordable way to do it is to get Japanese PSA 10 illustration rares because they're going to be the most affordable to everything. They just are much cheaper than their English counterparts. That's going to be the ideal situation, especially if language doesn't matter, if you're just looking at the artwork. So that's, again, my 2 cents. Again, we talked about sealed products, sealed availability, what you would be looking for in the overall outcome of your shopping, and what are we looking for when we go shopping, what value are we looking for, and stuff like that. So that was really the goal of what we were trying to do today, plus highlight some PSA slabs, the market, and what's going on, and that we accomplished all that. And I hope this answered some of your questions as to, what is right, what is wrong. Again, there is no set right or wrong instance. There is no right or wrong. The right thing to do is what are you comfortable with doing? The wrong thing to do is doing something that you're not comfortable doing. And sometimes we make mistakes in investing, like what we think is going to go up, or sometimes we're really fortunate and the card that we get just goes to the moon, and that's okay. You win some, you lose some, but what you have to remember is that your market value is much like the stock market. So the stock market, everything is volatile. Appreciate you taking all this, and yes, it answered a lot of them. Not all. I appreciate you, Shaker. But like I said, that's going to really sum it up. Tomorrow is our inventory update, so we do have a large number of slabs coming in. We have a large number of raw cards coming in. We are going to be doing an impromptu live stream. It is going to be an adult-only event on Thursday, so it's not going to be any kids at the event. It's going to be a trade night inside of Washington, D.C. for adults, but it will be there. We will live stream it. It's going to be really loud, so we're going to try to find a way to mitigate background noise. But like I said, it'll be a live stream. We're going to see how it goes. But I just wanted to announce that yes, we will do it, but it will not be our traditional vending things. Yes, we are going to... Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, I got one more. Excuse me. Sorry. Yes, we are going to stream it just because... we want to have fun with it and we want to bring you guys the content. I'm just going to angle my camera a certain way so it captures where we're going to be at. And thank you. And what we're going to be doing. And so it'll be at Don Tito's. It's above a restaurant. It's kind of like a nightclub bar thing that they convert into like a trade night for adults. So there won't be any kids. And I'm going to annotate that in the thumbnail on the YouTube video. If you guys just want to come hang out with us, it's literally just going to be, Trash is, come chill with Trash and Haunter while we vend, right? And it's not really going to be us vending. We're just going to be hanging out. If we sell cards, we sell cards. We were asked to come do this. We're doing it as a favor. So Whether or not we sell anything is irrelevant, but we are just going to show our support for the event there. So I know those that are a distance away, stop in, say hi. Like I said, it's going to be I'm going to put that in the title too. Like, it is an adult Pokemon event, no kids. So I don't want people to think that I just don't want to do events with kids. It's just that one sole event, and then we'll be live Saturday and Sunday as well, and that'll be a normal show. But I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, y'all. Thank you for all the wonderful support again, and we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow during our inventory update and seeing all of the new stuff that we got. Much loves, y'all, and deuces.